Hey, everybody, it's your briefing attorney, Jeremy Rosenthal. I wanted to share with you this interview I did with Live Now from Fox back in April of 2024, just last year, about the Chad Daybell murder trial. It's a capital murder case out of Idaho. We talk about jury selection in a capital case, capital punishment, and the jurors' roles and responsibilities in a capital case. Stick around to the end and get an update to see how everything shook out at the end of the trial.
Let's bring in a friend here of Live Now from Fox, Jeremy Rosenthal, trial attorney. Thanks so much for being here and giving us your insight once again. And Jeremy, this is a case that has gone worldwide, has sprung up documentaries all in, and now we are seeing another start to this trial on the Chad Daybell side.
That's right, Mike. I don't think it's really famous because of the insurance fraud aspect of it. I think that folks are kind of hooking into some of the more scintillating parts of it. Very bizarre story, a very tragic story, and ultimately what we have is a death penalty trial. So the consequences couldn't be any higher.
And what I want to ask you, when you have these high-profile cases, especially when ones have already seen documentaries, how do you get a jury of men and women together that are going to be impartial and haven't seen some of the facts out there of this case?
It's really hard. What most courts are going to do, most courts recognize that. What they do is they draw a very large, what you would call a venire. If you've ever gotten jury duty, you get the notice, you go down. And so for a death case, you might get 300, 400, 500 people. Whereas if it's just a normal DWI or something like that, you might only see 30 potential jurors, because you got to run through and cycle through folks who haven't formed an opinion or who may have a strong leaning one way or the other on the death question. And if you say you can't follow the law, then typically you just go on to the next person and the next person and the next person. So, and that's why it's so time consuming. I think they took 6 days in this trial to pick the jury.
And for the jury that is hearing this case, it's the first day here of the opening arguments. And when it's a death sentence case here, there's so much pressure. I could just imagine what is on the jury. Can you explain maybe the difference for when someone is, when prosecution is seeking, life in prison over the death penalty, and just what that means for the jury?
Well, in a death case, a jury has to be unanimous about death, and typically a single nay vote on the question of death can sometimes can take death off the table. So that's a ton of individualized pressure for a single juror or for two jurors, right? You have this whole process, this whole procedure. You have a trial that's several weeks long. You have a lot of evidence if the defendant's found guilty of here's how rotten a person this guy has always been. Or on the flip side, you're going to see a lot of mitigating evidence about, well, this is why he is behaving the way he does. And at the end of it, it can come down to literally 1 or 2 votes that save his life. That's a tremendous amount of pressure. Normally, a jury verdict is going to be unanimous towards guilt or innocence one way or the other. And then normally, Texas, I think, is the only state that allows judge sentencing in non-capital cases, meaning that once the jury, if they find him guilty, the judge is going to be the one that levies the sentence. So the jurors, I'm one of 12 people and I found him guilty and I'm going to wash my hands of it and then I'm done. That's not the case in a death case. In a death case, it's life or death.
And lastly, for the defense for Chad Daybell, how did they separate for the jury? We all know what happened to Lori Vallow being convicted. And how do you separate that and get that out of the mind of the jury, where you would think, okay, this person is associated with Lori Vallow. If she was found guilty, he has to be guilty. How do you sort of separate that?
Well, you probably blame her is what you do, and I think she had her brother, the defendant's brother-in-law, also has a history and has been entangled in some of these murders. I think you kind of got to point at those folks. Interestingly, The wife had a lot of what we would call competency issues. And Idaho does not have the insanity defense. You cannot plead guilty by reason of insanity. And the wife had, I think they both had these apocalyptic views. So I think you could try to mitigate and separate yourself essentially by trying to blame her. But you got to focus on what does the evidence show against him, right? And again, I think if you're his lawyer in this case, you approach this as, look, we're going to try to save your life. We're going to try to keep you from getting executed here. And in some instances, believe it or not, a life sentence is a victory for the defense.
Yeah, that is so true and so well said. Jeremy Rosenthal, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox and always giving us your insight and expertise. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the interview, everybody. What happened was Chad Daybell was convicted of capital murder and was sentenced to death. He is currently on appeal right now, so the death sentence takes a long time to administer, as everybody sort of understands and knows. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.